Hey, what's up? It's Vito Calisi and Jonathan Barron from Meet at the Apple, and we're joined by the president of Baseball Operations, David Stearns. Now, David, it's been just right off the bat, it's been a pretty busy day for you today.
It has been a busy day. Been a busy couple of days, but we made some transactions. We've optioned Brett Baty, optioned Christian Scott, two players who are going to continue to play a huge part in our season over the course of the year. I think both of them have had periods of really impressive performance at the major league level this year. But for a variety of reasons, we've got the London trip coming up. We have a bunch of off days, so Scotty's really not going to get a chance to pitch as much over the next couple of weeks as we might like. So we'll get him back to AAA. And then with Brett, we've got a bunch of lefties coming up. And with Mark Vientos coming up here, doing a nice job, we'll get Brett some regular at-bats down in AAA as well. And he's going to be back. There's no question he's going to be back. We just got to find the right time in the season to do it.
Now, May is obviously not gone the way we all wanted to, but there are some bright spots. For instance, the Mets have the second most hard hit balls in the league. The Mets have the second largest gap between expected batting average and regular batting average. So there are signs that things could and should be a little bit better. Are you still seeing those things, and are you still feeling as if this can be a playoff team? Because right now, the third wildcard team in the National League is on pace for 82 wins. So it's not like you have to get to 90, 95 to get in.
Yeah, I think at this stage, given where we are, what I'm most focused on, what all of our players are focused on, is just trying to win today. And if we focus on winning today and doing everything we can to win today, and if we do that every single day, I think we're going to wake up at some point and be pretty good with where we are. It's very difficult to look at the standings when you're below 500 and say, yeah, we're playing like a playoff caliber team. I certainly can't say that. But I think we can productively look at how we can win today. We certainly have a roster that is capable of winning today. And if we do that enough, we're going to be fine. In terms of the misfortune so far this year, we've had some poor luck offensively. We've had some guys who have had pretty good offensive seasons who haven't been rewarded for it. Brandon Nimmo's the guy who jumps out right away. Has done a really nice job this year, just hasn't been rewarded for it from a hits perspective. And so I think that's fair. I also think there are plenty of things that are within our control that we haven't done well enough, and that we're all aware of. Our players are very aware of it, and we need to take ownership of those and work on those to try to improve.
One of the things that I think fans have noticed about you is that you've been aggressive with promoting prospects, like Christian Scott's promotion to the big leagues. Is that something that you continue to plan to do, and is that something that Mets fans should expect to see for the rest of the year?
Philosophically, we believe that we need to challenge our players. That if a player is succeeding at a particular level on his path to the major leagues, that we need to continue to challenge him, and that's okay if he experiences some failure. We're all going to experience failure in our careers at various points. Players are certainly going to experience failure at the big leagues, and experiencing that at various levels in the minor leagues is not really a bad thing for player development. So we do want to challenge our guys when we see our players having mastered a particular level. We're going to try to get them moving. At the same time, if players need a little bit longer at a particular level, that's okay too. There's no set timeline or time frame for any individual's development to graduate from a level or to get to the big leagues. We want to take this on a very individual level, and when a player has demonstrated that he's ready for the next challenge, we want to give that challenge to him.
So there are no necessarily check boxes or like one size fits all approach. Jonah Tong is a really interesting guy. Started the year guns a-blazing in St. Lucie, and in the past, perhaps he would have been forced to stay at least 2 months, maybe a month extra than he really needed to. But that wasn't the case here. You guys promoted him immediately. Nolan McLean, same thing, from Brooklyn.
Jeffrey Rosa.
He comes over.
I think?
One game. He homered in his first stateside game, and he gets moved up to the St. Lucie Mets. So is that really the approach that you guys have across the organization?
Yeah, I think Andy Green, our entire player development staff, is very focused on ensuring that our players are at a level that allows them to grow. And if we know that we're going to succeed at a particular level, if the talent around us, the maturation level around us is maybe a little bit below where we are, it's going to be tough for us to grow, going to be tough for us to challenge ourselves. So We're trying to get guys in locations at levels where they can really stretch, where it's tough, and where they ultimately experience a little bit of failure and then overcome that.
In your opinion, what's the general state of the system? Obviously, you came in here in late October.
Yeah.
You're approaching your first draft, which I'm sure is very, very time-consuming and exciting.
Yep.
The draft coming up in July, and then you have your first IFA. Well, actually, you just did your first IFA, but not first full cycle. So you came in, and now you're putting your stamp on things. But what is the overall state of the Mets farm system, in your opinion?
We continue to get better, and I'm really thrilled with the amount of talent that's been infused in this system over the last 12 to 18 months. We're going to have another really good draft here in 6 weeks or so and add more talent to that group. And this needs to be a constant process. You're never done getting better. You're certainly never done adding talent, young talent to the organization. If we look at the great organizations in baseball, the great teams in baseball, they are built on young talent. They are built on players who can be with an organization for a long period of time, who have a degree of athleticism and youth. And we need to generate more of those players, and I think we're in the process of doing that.
We saw a big emphasis on college guys in 2023, and a lot of those guys have been great. Cade Morris, Jack Wenninger, Nolan McLean, who I mentioned. Do you have a philosophy when it comes to the amateur draft? College guys, a little bit more polished, a little bit older, closer to the bigs versus high schoolers who you could put your stamp on a bit more because you get them younger and your player development team can work with them more?
I really don't.
Okay.
And I think it comes down to who do we think is going to be the best big leaguer when we're making the draft and who's on the board. That is what this comes down to me. I don't have a preference, college or high school. I don't have a preference, pitcher versus position player. We just want to find the guy who at each spot has the best chance to be the best big leaguer. The draft is a very inexact science.
Sure.
It is very tough to predict. I'm very excited to get to work with Chris Gross, who's our VP of amateur scouting and doing a great job as we go through this first draft.
No, is there anybody in the Met system right now that you've been like pleasantly surprised by? Not surprised, but just very impressed by.
Standouts.
Yeah, look, I think on the pitching side, we've had a number of guys take meaningful steps forward. So Tidwell's the one that comes to my mind. I think where he is in his development right now, having already made that jump from AA to AAA, probably faster than I would have envisioned at the front end of the year, has been really good to see. And he's gone from a guy who you're envisioning, all right, maybe he makes a debut at the end of 25 or in 26, to someone who all of a sudden is a step away. And is progressing really rapidly towards the major leagues.
Now, what's it like when you judge that jump from AA to AAA when you have to take in other factors like the ABS system?
Yeah, so AAA is a much more advanced league. You're dealing with a lot more players with major league experience. Hitters have approaches at the plate that are probably a little bit more refined than what you see in AA. And you're right, we now have some rule experimentation going on at AAA. That can alter what we're seeing. So for pitchers in particular, the ABS system, the strike zone is probably a little bit smaller than what they're used to at lower levels of the minor leagues. That's a good thing. The umpires here are pretty good, and at some point we're probably going to have ABS here in the big leagues as well. So we're going to have to get used to getting on the edges and not getting 3 inches off the edges as you might be able to lower down.
Are you pro ABS?
I am pro. The answer is broadly yes. I think where we're headed as an industry is probably this challenge system.
Okay, I was going to ask because there's 2 sets of rules, which is also a crazy variable for guys to deal with in AAA.
Yes.
It's not always the same.
It's not always the same.
It's
you
nuts.
play half a week with
full ABS, and then half a week we got the taps on the head, which is
Exactly.
challenges.
Exactly. And I think where we're probably headed in the big leagues at some point is the challenge system, and that's exciting. I think it adds an element of strategy into the game. It will be exciting for fans. The technology is good enough to do this. Other sports are doing things like this. We've had this in tennis forever, right? In the in or out calls. So I think this is ultimately a good thing for baseball, and I applaud MLB and the players for sort of coming together and trialing this and getting us to where we are right now.
Another guy we want to touch on as we continue to talk about some minor leaguers is Brandon Sproat, who really caught attention during the spring breakout game. had a 109 ERA in Brooklyn. The walk rate was a little higher than probably you would have liked to see. He's more than cut it in half going to Double-A. What are your thoughts on Brandon Sproat, and is he a guy who you could see possibly taking another step before the end of 24?
I'm not going to predict on promotions going forward. I think the double promotion in the year is certainly possible. It's also pretty unusual, but he's been phenomenal all year from the start, and from when you hear from our coaches is the aptitude and his ability to take feedback outing to outing from our coaches, challenge himself to get better. It has been really impressive. So, look, any time you see a relatively recent draft pick get all the way to Double-A in this period of time, we're in a pretty good spot.
So we've talked a lot about young players. One young player who, unfortunately, we haven't had the privilege of watching this season, Ronny Mauricio, recovering from the ACL injury he sustained during a Dominican Winter League. What's the status, if you have one, on Ronny's recovery?
Yeah, his rehab and recovery is going well. He's down in Florida. He's working incredibly hard. This was a significant injury, and so we still have a ways to go here before we're talking about rehab games and progressing towards playing. But the reports from our medical staff have been really positive, and that's encouraging. And we know Ronny is going to be a part of our future, a big part of our future. This was a really tough blow for him this year, but he'll get there.
100%.
So last time we spoke to you was early March, late
February. Yeah.
Now we're about to hit June. So what's been your favorite part of the job so far, just a few months into the season?
Yeah, I think for me personally, getting to see the enthusiasm that Mets fans still have for our team. Even with this rough stretch, we had a sellout last Sunday, and that ninth inning where we're making a rally and having a rally and coming back, that could have been a late September game with a playoff berth on the line, right? Like, it was that level of enthusiasm, intensity in the stadium, and our players feel it. I mean, I went downstairs after the game. Our players were talking about the atmosphere in the stadium that day. That doesn't exist a lot of places, and obviously my personal connection to the fan base makes that part of this really rewarding for me. The fact that I can help contribute to that and hopefully put a product and a team on the field that's going to generate that level of enthusiasm, that level of excitement, and that atmosphere much more often.
I'm sure since you've taken over in the neighborhood, around the ballpark, wherever it might be, fans are probably giving you advice all the time. You won't get that from us here on the podcast. Sure. We'll just pepper you with questions, but we won't give you any statements or remarks. But has there ever been a time since you've come into this role where someone said, "Hey, David, I think that you should do this," a personalized WFAN call, and you were like, you walked away and you were like, you know what? That's a pretty good point.
Hey, David, it's Jeff from Syosset.
Has it ever happened? You don't have to give instances.
Look, I think we have a very knowledgeable fan base. I think we have a very passionate fan base. I think we have fans that want to see results now.
This is a no, by the way. This is a nice way of saying no.
So often the advice I am getting from our fans or neighbors or family members has to do with what we can do to win the game tomorrow. And my job is really, what can we do to win as many games as we possibly can over the course of the season, over the course of the next 5 years, and try to win a World Series. And so I have to balance that very well-intentioned advice and sometimes my own internal emotion as a Mets fan with what my job responsibility is, and that's to help lead this organization in the most productive way I possibly can.
Do you scroll Twitter?
No. Would you scroll Twitter if you were in my job?
No, I mean, look, I scroll Twitter in this job, and that's tough enough as it is.
Yeah, people are mean to us also. You'd be surprised.
I feel like people are nice
don't
to
say
you.
I'm sure. That wasn't nice either. All right, let's get this back on track here. London's coming up.
Yeah.
Team's going to London, playing a really big series against the Phillies, 2 games at London Stadium, which lots of runs could happen if past is any indication of future. You're going. How excited are you for the trip and just the overall experience you guys will endeavor into?
Anytime you do one of these events that's a showcase event for Major League Baseball, it's a privilege, and I think we feel that way. I love London as a city, so first and foremost, I'm just looking forward to getting over there and hopefully having a half a day at some point to walk around. From a team perspective, to be able to have an opportunity for our premium players to play on a big stage in front of national audiences in a game that's a special event for Major League Baseball, it's cool. From a logistical standpoint, it adds to the challenges we have. We're flying a long way to play 2 games, then we're flying a long way back to continue our season. But I think we're well prepared for that, and I know all of our players are really looking forward to this.
Have you been before, or is this your first time?
I have been.
You a soccer guy?
I know a little bit about it.
Are you a Ted Lasso guy?
I have not watched Ted Lasso, no.
Download it for the flight.
Yeah.
It's worth it. I feel like it'll help you acclimate to society there.
On the flight, are you I'm watching tape, because we've talked to Mendy, and when you guys went west, we asked him what he had downloaded on his iPad, and he was like, we're facing Yamamoto on Friday. I'm looking at that, and then we got Gavin Stone. I'm looking at him. Yeah. Are you a tape guy, or are you can you unplug and enjoy a Ted Lasso or whatever show floats your boat?
Depends on what time of night we're flying. I think fortunately, I don't watch a whole lot of video.
Okay.
We don't want to rely on my ability to break down an opposing pitcher. That's not that I would not be very good at that. But I will catch up on work on planes, and then I'll try to conk out and grab some sleep.
It's fair.
David, thanks so much for taking the time with us. I do want to offer you a gift before you go.
Wow.
You're one, it's just this. It's just me at the Apple koozie.
I appreciate that.
We gave one to Carlos. He liked it.
Is Carlos using it?
He is, yeah. He said he was going to bring it all on the road wherever they went. So you guys can maybe enjoy a Coca-Cola together on the plane. And
maybe.
And just last thing before we get out of here, this weekend is Darryl Strawberry weekend.
Yes.
Just you growing up a Mets fan, do you get over just getting to be a part of these ceremonies and see them happen?
It's really cool. I mean, so Darryl's here today, walking around, and just seeing him in the building, and for me personally to have a relationship with him, it is unbelievable. It is. He is sort of one of the larger than life figures in Mets history. He's an incredibly genuine person who cares a lot about other people and cares a lot about our organization. So I'm very excited for this weekend. It is an honor well deserved, and I think he's really looking forward to it as well.
Have you grabbed yourself a strawberry Shake Shack milkshake yet?
Not yet, but I will.
You
All
need
weekend,
to.
do you know the special?
I've heard about it.
Code Strawberry, you get a free shake.
Yep.
With purchase. Terms apply.
Thanks so much, David.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Do you mind if we